Reviews for the new iPhone 13s have just come out, and one very tempting reason to upgrade your iPhone would be for the new cameras. But before you put down your hard-earned dollars for a shiny new iPhone 13, here's 3 things you can do to up the camera game with the iPhone that you have now. Hi, I'm Derek from Try and Byte, and let's talk iPhone cameras. I know that right now, in peak new iPhone season, it feels like you have to have the newest iPhone for all the latest and greatest photo features, and that by extension, all the old iPhone cameras are now suddenly trash. But the truth is, cameras on previous generation iPhones are still really good. I'll be using my ancient iPhone 12 Pro Max for this video, but a lot of what I'm going to talk about can also apply to other generation of iPhones as well. So let's get started. The first thing I think you can do to up your iPhone camera game is to add lenses. Lenses are a simple way of adding perspective and functionality to an existing iPhone camera, and the good thing about it is it works for both photos and video as well. For instance, on the iPhone 13 Pro, Apple talks about adding macro functionality to its camera. Well, you can add this to your old iPhone as well using lenses from Moment. So to add macro functionality to your old iPhone, what you need is a case with a Moment lens mount, or you can actually buy this separate little clip that allows you to clip lenses to any phone, and the Moment macro lens. And all you have to do is take your Moment macro lens, twist, and there you have it. Macro functionality has now been added. This plastic thing around it is actually a light diffuser, so when you get up really close, it diffuses all the light, so you get very even lighting around the subject. And it allows you to take macro photos. So I just went out to the garden this afternoon and snapped these 2 photos. And this works for videos as well if you want to take macro videos. And Moment doesn't just make macro lenses, they have a whole range of lenses that you can add to your phone. So they also have a wide angle lens, they have this telephoto lens, which is a favorite of mine and that I've featured in videos before. And they also have an anamorphic lens as well. I'll put links to all these products in the description box down below. And that's the first thing I think you can do to up your iPhone camera game, adding lenses. It's so simple. You don't need any apps, just the lens, the case, and off you go. Now let's talk about video, specifically cinematic video. On the iPhone 13, Apple talked about adding this cinematic mode of taking videos a lot. Cinematic mode is a piece of software that was added to the camera for the iPhone 13s. Cinematic mode adds an artificial depth effect to video. Sort of like how portrait mode adds an artificial background blur to photos. So what cinematic mode is supposed to be able to do is figure out what the primary subject in a frame is and then have them all nice and sharp and blur everything else out. And it's also supposed to be able to figure out what subject in a frame is meant to be in focus as well. So in their demonstration videos, they showed a lot of how if somebody turns around and looks at somebody next to them, it puts them in focus. And it does this using this smooth transition between the 2 subjects. And you can actually achieve a similar effect to this using an app called Filmic Pro. Filmic Pro is a video recording app that gives you full control over the whole shooting experience. Unlike the camera app, you can choose to tinker all of the settings as much as you like. So in my example, I've decided to use manual focus, and this is done by adjusting a manual focus slider that I'll show on the screen here. And basically there are 2 points on this arc, and each arc corresponds to a focus distance. And you can set 2 individual points that Filmic Pro would move the focus in between. The bright green outlines that you can see on the screen, it's called focus peaking. This is basically a function that highlights all the sharp edges in frame in bright green so you know what's in focus. And in this example of a video that I shot at home, you can see how I've used this manual focus racking effect to have the focus initially on the foreground of my bear brick and then transitioning to the background where I am, just like cinematic mode. And if you want to accentuate this depth effect even further, you can add something like this moment telelens to further isolate subjects. So in this second video, you can see how blurry I am in the background compared to the bear brick in the foreground. And I think this effect looks very cinematic. And one extra advantage of using Filmic Pro over cinematic mode is that you can shoot in 4K over a range of frame rates as opposed to just 1080p in 30 frames per second. I know that Filmic Pro looks pretty daunting, but there are actually a ton of resources available online, especially YouTube, on how to use this app and what each setting does. One channel that I really recommend for this is iPhonographers. I'll put a link to their channel down below. The third thing I think you can do to up your iPhone camera game has to do with taking photos. To me, there are two main types of photography with iPhones: fast and slow. Fast photography is all about spur of the moment photos. So for this, you'll probably just use the default camera app because it's the fastest one to access. Slow photos are more intentional and posed. So let's start with fast, using the iPhone camera app. Did you know that the iPhone camera app actually has a pretty decent set of filters? So in the camera app, you swipe up where it says photo, portrait, pano. And then over to the right hand side, there's these three circles, and press that and then you'll see all the filters that you have. And all you have to do is, swipe around, find a filter that you like. I think this silver tone one looks really cool. Press the shutter button, and there you have it. The good thing about these filters as well is that you can actually change the filter after you've taken the photo. So all you have to do is look at your photo, go to edit, click on these three little circles down the bottom here, and then you can scroll through all the filters. If you change the filters after you take the photo, you can also adjust the intensity of them as well by swiping left and right. And if there's a filter that you want to use all the time, you can actually tell the iPhone to remember the filter that you like. All you have to do is go into settings, camera, and then select preserve settings option, and then just make sure where it says creative controls that it's ticked. In general, I find the filters that Apple predefine to be pretty good, and they're not too heavy-handed either. I'll show some more examples of me using these filters in different settings here. And now on to slow photography. The implication with slow photography is that you have time to capture your subject. So this means that you have time to consider and fine-tune your settings. And much like video, using a separate app opens up a lot more possibilities with the iPhone camera. So using an app like this Moment camera app, you can adjust all the settings on the camera. And you can also shoot in a full auto mode as well. But if you're just going to do that, you might as well just use the camera app on the iPhone. So in this instance, say I really want to take a really moody photo of this mug. If I use the default camera app to try and take this photo, it'll think that the frame is too dark and try and boost the amount of light in the frame. And the result is a well-lit photo, but not a very moody one. So with the Moment app, I can choose things like shutter speed. I can choose my own ISO, which is the sensitivity of the sensor on the camera. Things like white balance, manual focus, and exposure as well. So I can choose all the settings I want to get this nice, dark, moody photo of this mug. And once I've made all these settings, I'm really happy with it and I want to replicate it again, I can actually save it as a preset. Just like Filmic Pro for video, I know that the Moment camera app can look a little bit daunting as well. But again, the internet is your friend here. Moment themselves has some great instructions and videos on how to use their Pro camera app. I'll link it in the description box down below. And there you have it. Those are 3 things that you can do to up your iPhone camera game instead of upgrading to an iPhone 13. To make this video, I used a bunch of Moment products with my iPhone, primarily the Moment case with the Moment lens mount, Moment lenses, and the Moment MagSafe Pro tripod mount. I'll link them all in the description box down below. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, please ask in the comments down below. And if you think there's any tips that I've missed, feel free to add it in the comments. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you again next time.